Hey guys, welcome back to Real Talk with J&J. My name is Jasmine Purnell, and this is
Josh Purnell. Last time on our first podcast, we talked about communication. The second topic, we're going to talk about time management. And I'm going to set a story again back in 2021. So Jazz and I got married in 2020. 2021 was our first, I feel like 2020 was such a weird year with COVID and everything like that. So I feel like 2021 is when we started adding a lot of real life things to our plates. And we just had so many things that we were saying yes to. There was work, there was extracurricular activities, there was hanging out with friends. There was just so many things that we put on our plate that it kind of got a little bit overwhelming to the point that it's like we were just always stressed about something that had to get done. And there just never felt like that.
We always had something on our calendar, and we never had so much time to ourselves where we could relax. We always had a go agenda.
Yeah. And I think what I felt like personally is it was almost hard to enjoy what you were doing because you're like, oh, I still have so many other things I have to get done. I still have so many other things I have to get to. And so that's why today we want to take you through 3 steps of things that we learned that'll really help you prioritize your time. The 3 things that we want to share are priority setting is the number one thing you need. You need to set priorities. If you don't have priorities set, it's really hard to manage your time effectively. The second thing is make a plan that you're actually able to execute. Not just
very important.
Yeah, not some high lofty goal that's like the perfect version of yourself that's not really realistic. And then the last thing is just put your plan into action consistently. And that's really the important word I want to share there.
Let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's start with point number 1.
Priority setting is the number one thing that you need.
You can't make time, but you can always maximize the time that you have.
Yeah, it's really important that we're intentional about how we allocate our time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time to just sit down and say, what is everything that's on my calendar? What is everything I personally want to achieve? And how much time do I have? And then start really, really digging deep to set priorities. Like, what is more important than another thing? And sometimes it's really hard to decide, oh, this is more important than this. And we really have to take some time and do an inventory and think long term and do some research and seek advice. So this whole priority setting thing is something that is really about us being intentional to get everything on paper, get it down, get your priorities, get the things down that you want to accomplish, that you want in your life. And then just getting that initial list can be pretty hard. But then the next thing is like putting it in order, which what are some tips that you have for that?
So one of my favorite things that we started in 2020 or whenever we got married was we did a vision retreat starting of each year. So we really got together. We wrote down what we want to have and then made a plan of how we're going to execute this. We had let's say a year plan, and then we had a 5 to 10 year plan, short term, long term. And then we were going to say okay, how are we going to execute this? Is this feasible for us to do in a year? Is this feasible for us to do in 5 years? And we dreamt it up, and then we casted vision to each other of okay, this is how it's going to happen. And this is what we're going to have to be doing consistently to get there in the 5 to 10 year plan.
If you know what you want to do, you have a higher chance of getting there. If you know where you want to go, the likelihood that you end up in that place, it's just gonna be higher than if you have no clue what you want to do or how you want to get there. So really setting priorities. The key to maximizing your time is having a clear vision. And so if you don't know what you want to do, it's hard to move in any direction because you're kind of just moving on in a circle, oh, I'll try this, I'll try that. And then you just add things to your plate, almost like a big gumbo pot of oh, I'll try this, I'll try this, I'll try this. And you say yes to everything because you don't really have a clear vision of where you want to go. And the next thing you know, you have 20 things on your plate and you're like, wow, I don't have time for all of these. I like some of these things, some of these things I don't like. So it's really important to be very intentional about how you allocate your time.
Yeah. And let's say Joshua just said that you had 20 things on your plate. You thought initially that you could take on, but you realize, okay, this is not giving me life anymore. It's actually taking too much time where I'm actually exhausted. I'm drained. So it is okay to remove some of those things from your life to reset. That's totally fine.
You learn to say no to future things, but you also need to learn to cut out things. It's okay to say no. You don't have to say yes to every plan. You don't have to say yes to every good opportunity. There's one really good thing I heard. Is it a good idea or is it a God idea? And for me, that resonates, just being a strong believer of like, okay, is this just something good I can do? Or is this something that's going to really be moving me in the direction of my destiny? And I think it's so easy to just add good things to our plate and then feel overwhelmed when we have very little time, which is why we need to be, again, back to the first point. If you're intentional about where you want to go, it's easier to identify things that may be holding you back.
And so let's say we do all these things. We prioritize these things. We get these things written on paper, but we don't have a plan to execute it or a plan to implement it. This is not going to get us anywhere. And this goes to our second point, that make a plan that you are able to execute.
Yeah. So once you have a list of priorities and you get them on paper and you rank them and you do the hard work of getting there, now it's like, what do I need to change in my current routine to get there? Like, what is it that I decided I'm taking out? What does that look like to take it out? If you decided, and this could be good or bad things. Let's say, for instance, right now you work out for 2 hours a day, which I don't know anyone that does. Actually, I do know one person that does. Good for you. I don't know how you have time to do that, but maybe you're not taking out working out altogether, but you're like, you know what? I need to just reduce that amount of time. I need to just be more consistent, and I'll work out an hour a day, but I'll work out, 6 days a week or whatever. Maybe you're someone that has a lot of extracurricular activities and you have 6 of them and you're like, you know what? I'm going to cut out 3, but part of that is actually going to those people and letting them know, hey, this is something I'm cutting out of my life right now, or hey, I need to get off that. And you need to feel freedom and you need to feel confidence to understand that you're taking control of your time. When you commit yourself to all these other things and you give other people control of your time, that's when you can feel stressed. So it's really important to say, here's what I'm saying yes to, and here's what I'm saying no to.
Yeah. And so practically speaking, the easy way to start prioritizing is to take inventory of how you're spending your time now. So take a step back and go to your day-to-day basis or your weekly basis or whatever you're doing monthly, saying, okay, this is where I'm designating all my time to. And actually, I want to cut this in half and add this to it, or take this out and add this to it. So that's going to be an easiest step to go ahead and prioritize.
And this can be done 2 different ways. So when you make a plan, first, like we said, you want to make sure you take inventory of what you currently are doing. But you need to actually have a method of calculating this, not just like, oh, I want to think of it in my head. Like maybe take 2 weeks and journal, what you're doing with your time. Maybe create an Excel sheet. Like I'm a big Excel guy. I like creating everything in Excel sheets for me. So maybe that's the way that you do it. But there needs to be some kind of maybe there's an app even or something that you can use that says, okay, I'm going to create an exact schedule of what 2 weeks looks like for me, and help understand, because there's some things that if you try to do this all at once and you might forget something and then you're like, oh crap, I forgot I even have that commitment. But when you take some time, write everything down, you can start to see, honestly, when you're writing things down, it's a lot easier to be like, wow, why am I even doing this? This, first of all, it's a lot to write down, but I don't really need to be doing this. But it helps put a clear picture, and it helps have a record so you actually know where you're cutting things out.
So fun fact, when we got COVID, right, we were, we had lots of time to actually do some things that we wanted to do, like start a podcast, do some things that we wanted to do, but we got kind of lazy with our time and we're like, let's play Call of Duty. Let's binge watch a lot of Netflix. And honestly, I think after this is when COVID just started and we really had to quarantine 2 weeks. So after the first week, we're like, what did we just do? Mm-hmm. And we took inventory of yeah, we spent maybe 5 hours playing zombies, and and then maybe the other 5 hours we binged watched this Netflix show. And going to the next week, we're like, hey, let's try something different and try to make a positive impact of what we want to do. Or let's start writing these podcasts. Let's start listening to podcasts that will help us start with this podcast. And it's real. You can take inventory of what you're doing and have it down, and you realize man, what was I doing? What were we doing?
It's honestly this whole principle of when people say, oh, I don't have enough time. And then if you write down for 2 weeks, you see, oh, wait, I actually have way more time than I thought I did, but I'm just not using it very effectively. I'm stretched out to too many things. I'm spending too much time watching Netflix. Like, I'm not saying Netflix is a bad thing. We love our shows. We love, taking a step back and just relaxing. But, if you're watching it for 5 hours a day, honestly, it depends on what your schedule is. But if you're just spending too much time playing video games, too much time on Instagram, and social media is crazy. It's like we'll wake up in the morning and we'll get on social media for an hour and then like, oh, I have no more time to do anything. But we've just wasted that first hour that we could have been getting ready. We could have been, spending time reading, spending time meditating, spending time doing things that help us be ready for the day. But we've kind of shifted our focus there. So that's why it's really important that we do this exercise and be intentional about this. If you seriously want changes in your life, you have to do things different than you did before. And this is kind of annoying and it's kind of cumbersome, but taking the time to plan it out helps you set priorities a lot better.
And honestly, this exercise is for you to be honest with yourself too. Like, if you're literally spending 3 to 4 hours on Instagram or any social media, write that down. Don't just try to put any number to make yourself feel better of like, okay, no, I need more time of this. Like, be honest with yourself, what you're consuming with your time. So our next one is put your plan into action.
Once you've taken the steps to figure out what you are doing now you can combine that with your priority list that we talked about in the first point and see, do I match up? Do things like, are they cross-referencing? Do I need to be spending more time on this priority because this is a bigger deal to me? Am I spending too much time on this? And then that's the next step. And again, I'm a big record, Excel, apps, Google Calendar, so many things you can use of. Now you're going to create your plan with your priority list and what you're currently doing together. And it becomes a lot easier to identify what you need to eliminate, what you need to spend more time doing. Like for instance, like a lot of people have fitness goals at the beginning of the year. They're like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to go work out all the time, but they don't build it into their calendar. They are like, oh, wow, I didn't cut anything else out, but they expect to just start working out all of a sudden. Or they spend, a ton of time doing something that's not really a life-giving activity. And they're like, oh, I can't do my workout because I'm doing this, because they didn't take that step to prioritize and everything like that. And I think that's kind of where I found myself of like, I had all these goals and things that I wanted to do, but I didn't take the time to actually see, what am I doing now? What are my priorities? Do those line up? If not, I have to take action and put that plan in consistently.
So going forward to our next point, like the key word, what he said, put your plan into action consistently. The key word is consistently. You have to be consistent on what you want to do, right? So you can make a plan, do all this, and if you're not consistent about it, within 1 or 2 weeks, you're just going to fall back to what you were doing before. And the big thing about this is don't start way too high where it's like just you're never going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So just the main thing is start tiny steps, baby steps, make it consistent, make sure that you're doing these things every day, every week.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's not helpful to put a plan into place if you don't actually execute it. It's not helpful to make a plan that, and that's back to the point we made earlier, be honest with yourself. Like if you can't achieve something, like you need to see your track record and not just be like, oh, in a perfect world, I could do this. It's like, no, the world as it is now, what can you change? A lot of times people are like, I'm going to go work out. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to cut out sugars. Well, maybe you just start off with just working out. Maybe start off with, and maybe not an hour a day. Maybe you just need to find 20 minutes. But if you're consistent with 20 minutes, it's better than having one good day a week where you work out and then you just avoid it the rest of the week. Like consistency is going to be the key here in any plan that we make. If we're not consistent with something, what happens is we've then fallen into the same old patterns. It takes time to build habits. It took time to build our old bad habits. So it's going to take time to build good habits.
And we really want to reemphasize that start small, then you gain momentum. Do not overcommit to the things that you already have, right? If you're doing fitness goals, don't try to tackle all those 3 things all at once. Go ahead and say, okay, for 2 weeks, let me start working out for 30 minutes. Okay, the following 2 weeks, let me go ahead and start eating better with working out. And then that was working for a month, then go ahead in the second month and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to start cutting out sugars. So start very small, okay?
And even with like your time, it's better to strip down and build than to try to like always be like taking things out. So it's better to to start small. Like cut some things out of your life, cut some commitments out of your life that you can. And if you feel like you're playing too many sports, if you feel like you're involved in too many clubs, if you're involved with too many social hangouts and you want to be, just maybe say, I'm going to limit myself to one social hangout per week, or I'm going to limit myself to this type of activity only once or twice a month or something like that. That way you give yourself a plan, but then you have to commit to it. And sometimes it's maybe you don't want to go cold turkey. Maybe you're like, I really like this. I don't want to cut it out completely, but maybe you just need to do it less frequently. It's okay to change your schedule. And as long as you communicate that to those that you're working with and things like that, a lot of times those things, there is a more flexibility that can be built in.
And here's another important thing, accountability.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the one, if you go ahead and stop what you're doing, to encourage you and to say, hey, let's come on, let's keep it up. You're doing really good. Let's keep going forward. This is something that is very important, and you need to make sure that you have someone being accountable over you, or you're just so motivated that you can keep yourself accountable.
And there's a lot of different tools. Again, there's different apps. Like sometimes you can share data from your Apple Watch or something like that, or you can track an app of like, hey, am I doing these things like that? You can get a friend that wants to do that with you, or some kind of community. There's a lot of groups and stuff like that will help you stay accountable. It is very important to have somebody that's going to keep you accountable, because sometimes like we just want to rely on our own willpower. It's like, well, if our own willpower was that strong, we probably wouldn't have been in this situation in the first place. But we want to make sure that we're accountable to those that are like, hey, are you overcommitting yourself? Are you overextending yourself? Are you burning yourself out because you're doing too much? And then, it also helps you check progress consistently. Like you want to check your progress. You want to see, how have I done? Is this plan that I am putting into action consistently working? Am I seeing the results that I expect? Did I have the correct, goals or the correct, plan in place, or do I need to adjust? It's okay to adjust as you go. We're learning as we grow. We're learning as we do these things. So it's very, very important that we check our progress regularly. And a lot of times that helps when you have somebody that you're accountable with, because you can kind of have, hey, let's have a check-in. Let's talk about how have you been doing and stuff like that. One thing I wrote down here I really like is build on top of your successes. And Jazz talked about this earlier, of like, just do it for 2 weeks, one thing, and then add the other thing on top of it, and then add something else to it. And instead of trying to do all of them at once, it's like a staircase that you build this, and then you do this success, and then this success, and then this success, and then you add this on there. And then if you feel like you shouldn't extend yourself anymore, you've now got a great track record that you can stand on that is great, and then you feel that you're accomplishing the goals that you have.
So yeah, it's very important to know that this is a marathon. What you're doing, what you're committing to is not going to be a sprint. It's not something that you're going to finish quickly, or you're going to finish right away. Like you want to be, like we said, consistent. You want to be consistent and run the marathon, not the sprint.
Yeah. And I think a lot of time anxiety and stress come from being overcommitted, or for trying to sprint at things and trying to get goals done fast. And instead of enjoying the journey, instead of enjoying the growth process, instead of building a life that is full, we try to just get to success points very quickly. And then we overextend ourselves, and then we're very stressed. I also think of a biblical story here. It's like Mary and Martha. So Jesus is with them, and Martha is like super focused on just all these different tasks. But Mary, at the same time, she has her tasks, she has her things that she needs to do, but she's also just enjoying the moment. I think when you plan out your time effectively, it allows you to enjoy the moment. It allows you not to feel like you have to do all of these things very quickly, because you've trained yourself and you've created a habit where you know how much time I have for different things. You know that I've built in time for just mental health recovery, where I've built in time for meditation. I've built in time for my loved ones, rather than just, I got to get all these things done like that to make sure, I'm crossing my T's and dotting my I's. And then there's a verse that one of my friends told me. It was in Proverbs, big fan of Proverbs, but it talks about how, man, we make our plans. Like the heart of a man will make plans, but the Lord establishes his steps. It's important that we plan. It's important that we allocate our time, that we take time to be intentional about what we're doing, to know what we want to get done, and that we try to put these things into place. And then, but at the end of the day, I believe God will honor that and help establish you and help give you his vision and purpose as you're creating a time and a space for that. So as we wrap this up today, we're kind of just reiterating what we talked about today. Priority setting is the number one thing that you need. It's important to take inventory of what you want in your life. What do you want to do? What is the priority? And then number two, make a plan that you're able to execute. And this starts with identifying what you're doing now and then bringing that with your priority setting together to figure out, okay, what am I able to actually execute? Don't create too lofty of goals because it's easy to get discouraged when you do that. And the last thing is just put your plan into action consistently. And the most important part of that is consistently. It's not like going to be helpful if you only put your plan into action for 2 days out of a 365-day year. But if you make small steps each day, you'll be very surprised how far you'll get in a year, how many great habits you'll perform, and how much you'll be ready to take your time management to the next level.
Thank you for listening in or watching in on our podcast with Real Talk with J&J. And we're so excited for you to see what we have in 2 more weeks.
As always, if you want to like, subscribe, share this with people who maybe you know someone that needs help with time management. Maybe you need help with time management and you just want to listen to this again and maybe take some notes. Please give us feedback. We're so excited. Thank you guys.